subject in our hands, so let's try to deal with it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, who are you?
What was my name? Okay, I think my name was Galip Kartoğlu. Hello everyone. My name is Galip Kartoğlu from Storming Studios. Why am I here? Because we have shipped 2 games with Unreal Engine. First one was Conarium. Maybe you have known it. It's released in 2017, and we got the Crystal Pixel Award for the best Turkish game. And our games are mostly known for their Lovecraftian theme and horror adventure type of games. Before Conarium, actually, we have developed 2 point-and-click adventure games called Darkness Within. They are kind of classic point-and-click adventure games. They are available on Steam. And lately, we have shipped Transient. It's another Lovecraftian cyberpunk-themed adventure game. It is on Steam. And the main point I'm here is that we have shipped those 2 games for PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and Nintendo Switch. So, who are you?
Nice. Hi, I'm Flavio. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
I'm Flavio, CTO of GameCan. And GameCan is a game studio. We mostly have our own child, call it Overstep. And Overstep was, hey. Overstep was released in 2019 on early access, and after we released that game, actually, it got a pretty nice score on Steam, 75% I think now of positive reviews, but we never spent a dime on it for marketing or anything. Then eventually the game died because at that moment, like to raise funds for the studio, we ended up going into outsourcing. And as well, for something about the destiny, I don't know, we ended up on mostly console, doing outsource for studios that needed a lot of help with console porting and all that, and it was amazing. So we worked on several games like G.I. Joe, Street Power Soccer, my own games. I have another studio in Brazil as well, Eternity, The Last Unicorn, worst game on IGN score of 2019. Yes, it's mine. I did it. Thank you.
That's an achievement.
And releasing another game right now as well on all platforms. So yeah, let's shoot.
Yeah, we are here, and I think our main common point is that we all love Unreal Engine development.
Yes.
Yeah, even it's our downfalls and crashes, you know.
Yes.
It crashes.
And we love consoles as well, except for Switch. Love play on it, not making games for it.
I was wondering how many of you is actually thinking to, I mean, make their console game or already doing. Planning to?
Planning to or doing
planning
it
to
already?
Or first planning to.
Okay, how many of
Not
you are
much.
already suffering?
Already having pain and stuff.
Yeah?
Nobody. 1, 2.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so.
So maybe you could also, you know, share your suffering with us so we can all, you know, think in the same manner. Well, the aim of this talk, I believe, to cover all the steps when making a console game using Unreal Engine. And I hope the points we covered is going to help you to avoid those, you know, pitfalls. So where do we start? I think we should start
at the start.
At the start. So we call it onboarding. Okay. So I assume that you have all applied for Sony, Nintendo, or Microsoft, and you got approved of your game. You know, they ask for approval. You have to make a pitch for them in order to get approval, and you get your site access, developer accounts, ordered your dev kits, you have to pay them to buy their kit to develop your game. And what else? You
First you need to have a registered company. You cannot do that as a solo dev, as a person.
You have to be a company.
You have to be a company. That's the first thing. Except for Xbox that has that program, but it's not very good. ID at Gold, something like that. But you cannot actually ship Unreal games with it. For Unity, it actually works because you need to make a UWP game. So pretty much like if you were releasing to Windows Store or something like that. But that, you need to contact them all after you have your company established. Make the pitch because they check that. If you have any references of another game, something that you already made, put in there as well. It's basically sending a CV of your game and who you are, your company, to them. Because they don't want to just distribute dev kits, all around the world. And
and after that, you luckily received your dev kit. And in Turkey, it's a bit difficult because you have some custom situations here. But I assume that you get it. You put it on your studio and opened your host PC, and you got connected, downloaded.
You're gonna have to activate your
activation,
dev kit,
yes.
so don't expect that it's gonna be straight out of the box. With the Xbox, you have an automated system to do that, actually pretty easy. But with Sony, you're gonna need to send them an email, tell them which one is the serial number of your dev kit so they can activate it.
That stuff you have to do. And also you have to get a static IP for Sony development. So that's a must and maybe tricky depending on your setup. And also then you start installing the SD keys, download them from their web pages, and you install them and you got started for running your for game. And then we go to you have to create accounts, right? For development accounts.
For the developers.
And for the developers, that accounts some special accesses for using online services and special accesses for all the stuff. And I would like to ask you, Flavio, how do you handle this stuff? Because there are a lot of things you have to do in order, and sometimes the documentation may not be so well, and sometimes you skip things. So every time you start a new project, it can be a bit tiring, right?
Can be a little bit tiring, a little bit complicated. When it's the second project and so on, it's easier. Way easier because they already know you. You have your point of contacts. They will give you a representative that will take care of your account and take care of you basically. And with that person way easier to do it. You still need to send a pitch and all that, but yeah, trust me, just way easier with the representative. All the other stuff continues the same, that you're gonna need to create accounts for your devs in there as well. You need a static IP. PlayStation pretty much doesn't work outside of that static IP, right? Because that kit needs to...
It runs out in 90 days, so it just locks itself, the kit locks itself, so you cannot use it unless you unlock it through the website and say, I'm alive, or otherwise it assumes that you are not developing anymore. So what else? I mean, we talked about the stuff we are talking to. There are actually 3 types of stuff, I believe, which is the developer stuff which you can ask technical questions and take help on where you have problems with coding or using API and their SDK. And there are also stuff for publishing, which helps you to punch a release date, make some arrangements for that. And there are also test teams. I mean, you will eventually get into some certification and submission progress. And this is very, very time consuming, go back and forward type of thing. And they have different names. It says lot check in Nintendo, and they have different type of names for that certification. And they just check your game against their terminology, the user experience. You will have a very big list of things you have to adjust your game, or in some cases you may even have to change the flow of your game when you're arranging the user accounts and accessibility things. That's also a bit tiring. And I can say they are very strict about what they are doing. So, I mean, if you're, assume that if you're just rejected your game for not, obeying the rules of, say, signing out or in for a user, you can say, oh, my release date is close, please let me pass, or I will have to delay my game. Don't say that, because they're not going to say.
They don't care.
They don't care. So, okay, but it's not a problem. So the rules are very strict, and you have to obey them. You cannot just say, but in my situation, there's such an exception. They won't listen. So it has to be done in everywhere. And then we have, age ratings things. We have to sort it out.
Age ratings, good one. This one is actually important one. You need the documents of the age ratings from the agencies for you to pass certification. So you need to request that with an agency, I don't know, in Turkey, if you have one that can take care of all of the rest, because you pretty much, if you're gonna release in Americas, you're gonna need the ratings from Americas. If you're gonna release in Europe, you're gonna need the PEGI ratings, and so on, for the entire world. And this is very important on the ratings part.
Luckily, I believe we have IRC right now, which is the free. It is very good for independent developers, because they accept all the ratings all around the world, including, I think, New Zealand and...
Okay, that actually makes
Australia,
it easy.
yes, that's a tough one to get.
Yeah.
But with IRC, I think Nintendo is accepting IRC, so it is free. Just fill a standard questionnaire, and then at the end of that, you are just get your ratings immediately. Cool
Okay,
stuff.
yeah, on a Xbox as well. Xbox is just a bunch of check marks in there, and then they do accept that.
They do accept it.
But you need it.
But
the Australian one, the Australian one is the one that will probably complicate your game, because there is one rule on all of the publishers of consoles, that the highest rating is going to be the default one on countries or regions that you don't have a specific one. So, and Australia is usually the one that if you have like a drop of blood, will put your game to 18 plus. it's the annoying
they
one.
are very tricky to get, and you have to exactly remember which rating, because rating is also sub-IDs, sub-ratings. So you can take a teen, but there are different type of teen ratings. So you have to mark exactly into documentation, and for instance, in Switch, you have to mark them also into the binary of the game. So if they don't match, they will reject your game. And every time they reject it, so you have to be cool about getting rejected. It's a very normal thing. You just do it again and get rejected again. Never expect to pass in the first certification. So
yes, and Unreal will do everything for you guys on the age rating side. So you will input a list in there of all of this, and you can see that on the forums. One detail: once you get the permission from the first party ones, the first party companies, aka Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo, you're gonna have to request the patch, the platform files for Unreal Engine, which you're going to put in there, and it only works with the source version of the engine. You're going to have to recompile the engine with those enabled. Once you get the access, you need to email Epic and ask them to give you access to those. Then they will proceed with giving you access to the platform files. And then you're going to see the platforms, Nintendo, Switch and PlayStation, Xbox. And in there, you're going to have the options to put the age ratings and all that. So that part, technically, it's done for you. Now, I think we might extrapolate the time a little bit because, so I think we should
okay,
keep
let's get into development.
faster.
Okay,
Yeah.
we sorted out, we are ready to run our game, but of course we have to change and check our game. So let's talk about the development stuff. First thing you're going to do is actually check the capabilities of the consoles, because each console has different features. But in my experience, we were always doing single player and story-driven games. We didn't actually use the HD Rumble feature of Nintendo Switch or Joy-Cons separately. And if you have done that, please add your experience here. But in most cases, Xbox used to have Kinect, but don't anymore. And user account management was a pain in the neck.
Yeah, user account management and controllers will be your nemesis when it comes to console development. By the way, if you think it's performance, yes, performance will be fun to deal with, but yeah, the controllers is just hell.
Yeah, that's a nightmare.
It's a nightmare.
I think it used to be a nightmare, huh?
Yeah, it got better because the most problematic one was Xbox. Because Xbox gives you a lot of freedom. There are some really cool stuff you can do, like you can tap one account into a controller and that thing just logs you in automatically. It's super nice and all. But it gives you issues when you're developing the game itself, because every single one of those of the first parties have rules about that. I cannot go very, very specific about those rules because it's NDA stuff. But one thing I can say that on all of those, I mean, we are all gamers in here. We all know that every single console game has the press start screen, right? If you guys ever wondered why is that thing, because you know I'm already logged in, just freaking go, and that's actually to establish which gamepad is the user actually currently using. So once you press start on that one, the game actually registered that gamepad is that account. So I'm gonna continue responding to this controller only. Because you don't want like your 5-year-old cousin getting the other controller in and messing up and controlling the same character as you and blah, blah, blah. That blocks your certification, and that happens a lot in Unreal Engine.
Yeah, that's very problematic.
You need to do a specific architecture when you are making your game, that on that screen, you're going to actually save which local player. Do not save the controller object in there. Save the local player, because the controller resets. It gets destroyed every time you open a new map or you travel, right? So it doesn't work. It needs to be the local player. So you register that object in there, and you create a function, something like get master player, something like that. And you do everything from that guy. Do not use the get controller by index and pass the 0 on it. That will end up giving you issues, because if that player changes, the first player changes the controller, it won't be controller 0 anymore. It will be controller 1 or controller 2 or 3, and it will mess.
Well, actually,
absolutely.
I figured out a cheat to make it work using get player controller 0 thing. It actually worked, but I'm not going to tell you because it is history.
Every time you change controller, you output it, the master one, you set the ID to 0, right?
Yeah, such type of cheating, but with the new version 4.27.
On the Xbox, oh yeah, good one. That's very interesting because Unreal used to use, I love that sentence in English, used to use the XDK for Xbox, but now Xbox have the GDK, so Microsoft basically united all the Xbox and Windows development into one package, one SDK, which is really useful. And with that, you have a feature called simple user management in there. It's a feature that you need to opt in. Now, Unreal 4 doesn't have exactly support for that, right? Mm-hmm. There is a branch of Unreal that is Unreal 427 Plus. That branch actually already has support for that. And but I'm not entirely sure if that specific functionality is in there. If not, you grab the platform files of 5.0, you grab the platform files for that thing, you make a diff between the 427 Plus and that one, and you just implement the simple user management from that one. That for Xbox works like flawlessly, and will make your lives super easier, because then you're gonna make Xbox actually behave like a PlayStation when it comes to the user management. Yeah. So if the master user, for instance, switches the account or logs off, the console will bring the game down and say, all right.
Well, that's the main issue, because the user may have changed the account or changed the controllers, and in that case you have to say the users that the user has changed, returning back to start menu type of things you have to implement. And the good thing about PlayStation 4 and Switch, you have the option as a developer to force the game to start and stick to just one account. So account switching may not work depending on your choices. So it was easy, but in Xbox, yeah, it used to be a very tough situation. And then we have achievements we have to implement, but fortunately, Switch doesn't have achievements. I mean, they how can I say, principally reject achievements. You know, in most games we have achievements like, okay, you progress and you get an achievement. You progress and get a progress-based achievements are.
There is a minimum number of achievements. Cannot tell you exactly how many. It's NDA as well, and it changes from platform to platform, but only Sony and Microsoft has those. So when you're designing your game, you need to have that in mind. Okay, I'm gonna do for consoles, have achievements. There is a minimal number. You need them.
I think it's 14 or something, 14, I believe. But if you have already implemented achievements on Steam, you're good to go. You probably use them as they are, not making much, except PlayStation, because they have a platinum achievement, which you take when you completed all the trophies. They don't say achievements, by the way, they say trophies. And Nintendo, if you want to keep that achievement stuff in your Switch game, then you have to implement your wrapper or some kind of interface that mimics the achievement process.
Use the achievement subsystem of Unreal. There are on the forums, there are code already in there posted for you to use that thing. Use it and it will be flawlessly. Don't try to interface directly. Oh, this is very important. Don't try to interface directly with the SDKs of the consoles unless you really needed to. Unreal will give you the stuff that you need. Except for Switch, the controller management. So Unreal has this function, on controller connection changed. It has this delegate in there. Oh, you need C++. There is no way you're gonna certify your game with blueprints only.
You can't
actually
ship a game with blueprints only.
Yeah, there is no way, because you need to implement stuff in C++ to pass that certification. Unfortunately, there are functions that are only available in there, and you know.
I would also suggest to private console forums of Epic. They have many solutions because most of the players are, I mean, developers having the same problems, and they're actually giving you code and other documents to help you cover that situation. But
if you know the forums of Unreal Engine,
yes.
forums.unrealengine.com, once you get the console access, they will give you access to special areas in there, which you will find the information.
Suffering developers as yourself, and you can
Yes.
find specific solutions. And what about, I think the cloud save is also another common ground for all consoles. The thing is, if you're already made a save system in PC, you know, in Unreal Engine the saves are instant. They're, I mean, on a PC it is very easy. There's just a one write to the disk. But in consoles that may be delayed or asynchronous process, so you have to delay while the game is saving. You know, in all console games we have things like game is saving, don't plug off, don't turn off your console type of thing. That is the main reason, because saving takes place asynchronously and it can be interrupted with failures or corrupted saves and other stuff. Unreal Engine helps you in that regard, but even though you have to take into account that your saving should stop the game progress and then it continues normally. It's something I may say.
Yes, probably the way you're saving and loading your games right now, if you're already in the middle of development and you're gonna do the consoles part, probably you're gonna have to rewrite some stuff in there, because you can only save your game on the master player. You know, when you load or save a game, it asks you for the controller or for the controller ID. You're gonna need the master player's one to do that. You cannot just get the controller index by 0, just pass 0 in there. That's not gonna always work unless you do the cheat thing that you did that always set the ID of the master controller to 0. Then it would work. But still, you can only do that as well after the press start screen and after you recognized which one is the master player. If you try to load a save before that screen happens, which is mostly, how many of you put the load saving on the game instance?
Everybody is very well informed.
Okay, that's actually nice.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, that's very good. So you can only call for a loading on the save after that screen, right? Not before, if you try to do so.
And we are still talking about Xbox here, right? Saves, master index type of things.
Yeah, but Sony as well. If you try to do it before, Sony will pull your ear.
That's interesting. And maybe we could talk about the Nintendo, shiny Nintendo features. You know, the Switch is a very fun to play console and fun to develop as well. So we have, yes, it is
super fun.
He's being sarcastic. Well, the HD rumble system, they don't call it vibration, by the way. If you say vibration somewhere in your game, you're going to fail because it is HD rumble. It's a better vibration system, as far as I know, right? It turns on off very quickly. Its frequencies are border, and actually you can even play some mimic audio waves, so it's going to support your sound. So it is strongly suggested to use that, and you have to be putting extra care if you are making a Switch port of the game. We had an issue with our Switch port of Transient. There was one reviewer complained about the thumbsticks. You know, when you're playing with the thumbsticks on PlayStation 4, Xbox One, you know how they feel, right? But in Switch, they don't feel the same. Have you tested it on your hands with the handheld mode? They don't feel the same. It's a bit harder. So you have to take into account that your movements, if it's a first-person or third-person type of game, you have to take into account and meticulously make solutions for that. So it is more unforgiving, but it is more rewarding in return because it's a very, you know, interesting.
And basically
concept.
dead zones and sensitivity.
Yeah.
Basically that. It works well if you adjust those ones.
Yeah, it's very active friendly.
One thing though,
And
performance for developers and for Unreal Engine, right? So Nintendo, Microsoft, if you ever watch this, calm down, please. But the performance for Unreal Engine of Switch and Xbox One, actually it's pretty similar. Not because the consoles are similar in any ways, but on Unreal Engine, it kind of feels like it is. So if you're gonna target, at least this is what I do, if I'm gonna target like a Switch and I don't have the dev kit to test something, the Switch dev kit, but I have the Xbox One in my hand, I pretty much trust the performance on one another that will kind of match. So I'm talking about Xbox One first generation in there. I'm not talking about like Xbox One X, it's another thing, or Series S and X, it's also another thing.
yeah, and actually when we get to the part about the graphics and optimization, which we have to do in 10 minutes, I believe. Yeah. We are just targeting the base consoles, PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, because they are the most challenging to do, and you have to make a lot of optimizations. If your graphics are kind of realistic, photorealistic, because you know this is the power of Unreal Engine, and this is most studios choose the engine for their realism. And you're going to have a lot of optimizations. Shall we pass that part?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So we can actually
so
wrap it up.
We did the start screen, check. We did the inputs, check. And just one question, especially I'm asking you because I never done an online multiplayer game using Unreal Engine. I did with Unity, but not Unreal Engine. So I would like to ask, how is online subsystem is good and how it can be substituted well in other, I mean,
very reliable, actually. There are other rules for consoles and online. Like there is some prohibition of getting the friends list and showing it by yourself in your game. Unless you open a waiver, like unless you ask them for it because you have a very special use case like cross-platform, cross-play. Usually then you have to open the waiver and ask them, okay, please let me use it. And if you explain it well, they're cool with it. But usually you can't, so you have to deal with joining a session remotely with another player, like you, pretty much, how is that called? When you need to tell the game that, hey, I'm online and playing this.
Presence.
Yes, presence, thank you, rich presence. So you need to do rich presence and actually enable another player to join your game once it's joinable. The session system in Unreal can handle that all, so you can do with it. But yes, read the documentation in there because there is some special stuff that you're gonna need to face.
And I think you mentioned EOS is very good at.
EOS is very good actually. If you go cross-platform, which if it's your first game, don't go cross-platform. It is a little bit more complicated, especially on the certification part. Needless to say, they don't like very much the crossplay. They don't say it, but I have that feeling that, you know, say crossplay, it's like, okay, let's talk. It's like that.
They ask you a lot of questions.
Yeah.
To do that.
And there's a lot of rules, lots of rules for that. Especially the game cannot have any, like all of them will ask that the game cannot have any advantages on other platforms. That needs to be exactly the same gameplay, the same thing on all platforms, right?
And those platforms, I think, shouldn't know they're playing with which platform player. So
some
let
ask, some don't. Some forbids you to say that.
Bir dakika.
Okay, 1 minute, right? Yeah.
It can't be 1 minute, Arsh.
But yeah, so don't go with cross-platform on your first one. If you want to go to that, EOS with Epic Online Services, it's pretty good. Helps you a lot with that.
Well, then let me say a couple of things about the graphics then. But well, if you're going to
if you don't want problems with graphics, the best game is a black screen.
And if you don't have lighting or lights in your scene, that's the best. It will run at 60 frames per second. In our instance, when we're making Conarium, it's a photorealistic game, and it used the latest technology, and we decided to not use static lighting at all. So we didn't use baked lighting. We completely switched off that feature, and we had the challenge to make it run on every single console. And actually we made it, but we had to do a lot of light optimizations. First of all, never ever use shadow casting point lights. It's going to cost 4 or 5 times than a standard shadow casting point light. And you'll all understand, if you have some shadow casting point light in the screen, you will see 15 FPS and you'll understand something is different.
The biggest light issue that there are two, like shadow casting. Disable that thing if you're dealing with don't use
if you are able, or
cascading the shadows. Actually, don't cascade the shadows. Like your directional lights probably configured by default to cascade shadows. Disable that if you go into consoles.
Or I want to add something here. Well, you can use shadow casting spotlights, which are much cheaper. But you have to strictly scan your scene, how many active lights are in which places. So you're going to use console commands like profile GPU and start light rendering to check how many active lights are casting shadows. If you have 1 or 2 shadow casting spotlights, that would do. It's not going to force that well. And this is why we have checked all the scenes that minimize the usage of that. And for directional...
And be careful with the radius.
Yes, keep them small as possible. Yeah. And you can use, stuff like that turn off the light when you're too close or too far. You have to optimize the light radiuses a lot. And also for directional light, you can still use cascading, but I suggest you limit it to just 1 atlas or 2 atlas, because it directly uses 3 atlases, which means almost like a shadow casting point light. So with careful usage, you can make it. And you have to also take into account that your shaders shouldn't be too complex. I suggest to making using quality switches to making different versions of complex shaders. So shader complexity is a big problem issue and has to be handled in that way. And I'm not counting the level of detail meshes or stuff. That things, of course, has to be done in the right way, and there are a lot of documentation explaining that. So you have to make every bit of optimization when it comes to graphics. So it can be done with dynamic lighting, but you have to be very careful with your scene management.
Okay, I think I should.
Are we done?
He looks mad.
He looks Anyone is waiting at the door? Okay, because we started 10 minutes early, I suppose that we have 10 minutes more. Should we take questions? Sorabilir miyiz? Okay. So, do you have any questions? Yeah.
With all the complex regulations on the Xbox and the Sony, do you think that in the near future can we able to see some blockchain adapted games on those platforms?
Oh, okay. Microsoft banned blockchain games. Banned. I think only platform accepting blockchain games is Epic. Yeah, I think they were the ones that welcomed it. But yeah, Microsoft won't let you pass. Sony, I also think they won't let you pass. Nintendo, and even Steam banned. I don't know, but I can tell you by my
I think
and what I see, it is pretty much because it's kind of predatory for our industry. Games are made to be for fun, you know. We as gamers, we complain when there are loot boxes and money grab like stuff and blockchain. It's an alien thing that they want to get into our industry and suck the life out of it, you know.
Yeah, they want to stick with the
with the traditional good gaming, you know.
Gaming, yeah. Any more questions? Yep.
I'm interested for VR in Xbox or PlayStation. Now, when you make a new game, is there a special regulation that you need to adapt it to VR as well, or this is like two different things?
No, two different things. If you want to use VR, is one thing. If you don't use VR, is another thing. But most of the rules will still apply if you're doing VR. So it's gonna be extra. It's gonna be just a set of extra rules on top of your rules.
Okay. More questions? Well, then we thank you for. If we could, you know, make a bird's eye view of the whole process. I don't think we could do that because the subject is too enormous.
Very extensive.
Very extensive. If you have any questions, we will be out there. You can just drop by and ask questions.
We hope we could at least give you guys like some useful information, because I know that no one talks about this in the industry. Like it's kind of taboo because it's full of NDAs. I hope that we didn't break any NDAs as well, because
I think we didn't.
You know, lawyers, it's to help them, you know.
This is what the session is recorded, so we can't escape it either. I don't think so.
So I hope that we could help a little bit at least. All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.